Give me a second. Put in an active thumbnail. Okay, we are back. Fan favorite Esquire, attorney Esquire, Audrey A. Thomas, and she has some thoughts she wants to share with us. Audrey, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Honestly, I feel like crap, but I'm pushing. I'm going to push through it today. So no excuses. No excuses.
Oh,
Um, you have you have some perspectives that sometimes may rub people the wrong way if they didn't know who you were as a person, and which is everybody has a right to whatever their opinions and stuff like that. I want to ask you first before we even get into the main topic, visually, optics wise, perception wise, how do you feel about the image of melanated women, not just Black Americans, but I'm talking just melanated women, you know, the diaspora of melanated women. How do you like what you see?
I love all women. I'm a woman fanatic, right? Because I think that the fact that I am myself a woman mandates me to feel that way. Uh, One of the things you and I have discussed off the air is my socialization, right? And I was socialized in the company of some alpha males that were area leaders. And one of the things that I got to observe is that men have a camaraderie and a commitment to one another that I have yet to see women display, strive for, and or exercise in many instances. Rarely do you find women in support of women. So from an early age, probably around age 2, I developed this observation that drove me to believe that it's imperative for me to admire everything that is womanhood, everything.
Okay, two things I want to push back on you with. I I've never heard of there not being a such thing as woman camaraderie. I've never not seen it. Of all of what I've seen, done, and experienced with women, I think they have more of a camaraderie than the Black man does. I would dare to debate that with anybody, because if it's anything women have learned to do or become is gender first. That trumps all forms of camaraderie. Anything a men have ever accomplished. Do you see it that way? Can you see it that way, or you disagree altogether?
I don't think I disagree with you. I think what it is I believe that I've analyzed the meaning of camaraderie differently, right? So for me, I read a book, right? It was about a guy who liked a girl and she dismissed him and called him like a filthy corner boy. And all of the men on the corner were so outraged by that description and her disdain that they banded together and gave all their money in a pool so that they can get an outsider to come in and pretend to be like this really rich guy so that they could teach this woman a lesson. I don't think women would do that. In my observation, oftentimes when women see men disrespecting other women, they usually put that on the woman. And most women believe that they're doing what they're supposed to do. While every single man, no matter how unaccomplished, no matter how unconventionally attractive, no matter how financially embarrassed, no matter how untalented, uneducated, no matter how this man is failing to meet the standard, he does whatever he wants. He thinks it's his right to pick, choose, and refuse. I don't really meet a lot of women who have that perspective. And when I exercise or express that perspective as being a woman thing, you know what I get told? You act like a man. Yeah. I For me, camaraderie, celebrating womanhood doesn't mean doing what you're supposed to. It means doing what's necessary to stay in the game, in a position of power, in a position of equality, in a position of influence, in a position of I'm setting the standards that are important to me. Like a Megan the Stallion. Everybody says, "Oh, Megan is outrageous. She's this, she's that." But the one thing I like about that young woman is she's celebrating her choices without apology, but she's also extremely, extremely cognizant of her influence and her impact. And so she tries really well to balance. But her first priority is to be who she wants to be, not who everyone else is telling her to be. And the crazy thing is she's treated with more regard and promoted more than most women. For to just counter that with say a Kamala Harris, right? It's different how she's treated. So for me, I feel like women need to see women even at their worst and be able to respect, admire, and promote them anyway, right? That's something that I think women have to learn to do. I see your eyes popping out of your head. Go ahead.
You lost me. You lost me on that. So Megan the Stallion is a very poor example, extremely poor example. Um,
Why?
she embodies everything. She's a stereotype of everything that the
You were told
narrative.
that a woman shouldn't be.
No, no, no. What I'm saying is
Yeah, yeah.
the overall optics on or the visualization of her is stereotypical. Um, everything we've always believed that, especially women in the music business, to be, and she embraces those poor, those degenerate stereotypes and puts it forth unapologetically. And then you said, um, women, even at their worst, should be celebrated. That's not how the world works.
Yeah, but I'm not concerned with how the world works. I'm only concerned with how my mind works. I'm only concerned with what empowers me and how I feel and what I believe is necessary for to give people the confidence to be who they are comfortably, right? Because what happens is altruism is the reason why people kill themselves, right? They kill themselves because they feel they're not meeting the standard that someone who's less accomplished, less good looking, less less learned or even thoughtful than they are set. And most of the people who are setting the standards, they're stupid, right? So I'll give you an example. Um, I'm talking to a woman, she's a mother, her son's arrested, and everyone is telling her how to not be a supportive parent, right? How to turn her back on him. And I start explaining to her some personal knowledge that I have about the people who are telling her to not stand with her child, and she was embarrassed because she had no idea that these people had these pitfalls or shortcomings or that they were wanting in so many ways because they dressed nicely and they spoke standard English and they use their inside voices whenever they talk and they don't sag their pants and they don't smoke marijuana and all of these don'ts. But I know a lot of dudes that they are involved in privately that makes them no better than her son. In fact, I think it makes them worse, right? Because people would know not to really be less guarded around her son. But they wouldn't know this about those people. They would trust them because they're well dressed and well groomed and well spoken and soft spoken and seemingly trustworthy. But they're animals like everyone else because all we are trained animals, right? So for me, I'm not saying that what Megan Thee Stallion does is good or bad. What I'm saying is I celebrate that woman because she's a woman, because she is a representation of me. And here's the problem. Do you know why slavery got out of control? Because bad things happen when good people who should never have been enslaved in the first place chose to stay quiet. We have to understand that I may be against my brother may be against me. I may be against my cousin is against me. Me, my brother, and my cousin are always against our potential enemies. When I'm um, speaking to my clients, I let them know I have one role, and my role is to stand between you and your would be oppressors. And by oppressors, I'm not speaking about black versus white because my clientele runs the gamut, right? I have a white friend who was wrongfully accused and convicted of murder and eventually got out and became a lawyer. What I'm talking about is being that person who helps to keep a system in check so that no side becomes too powerful. Because I believe unequivocally that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I just don't want to turn a table. I just don't want to turn the other cheek. What I want is for everyone to have an equal and fair and just opportunity to be who they choose to be comfortably because we're all necessary, right? So my friend was upset because her daughter was a crackhead. And I said, "Why are you upset? You're upset because you think people are judging her. But your daughter is necessary. The drug treatment counselor got a job because people are smoking crack. The 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 treatment centers are open because of these realities. I'm not telling you that your daughter smoking crack is good. What I'm saying is don't let your daughter feel worthless or like there's no hope or that she can't choose to not be a crackhead or to become the one who was on crack but is now a judge. This is the things that people need to be taught that you can overcome every single choice you've made. And all any one of us needs is just support and love and to not be judged into submission or suicide. That's what I'm saying. I'm observing without opinion.
That's cool. That's
It's not just cool slide sexy.
no, 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 what do you call that? No, no, no. Now I get it from your perspective. I tend to pull back the lens and try to see the macro instead of the micro. Um, you speaking in celebration of Megan, good or bad, confirms what I've always the obvious. It's woman first, woman. You know what I'm saying? Men could not do this. Men could not say, well, yeah, he done shot and killed 3 people, but he's a man. He deserves. Men don't have that luxury of the
Why do you
opinion
think they don't?
because that's how the world works.
That's bullshit.
But
You're
that
saying this like it's a law. It's not. You're choosing to believe that men can't do this. You see, Sly, the men I grew up around, the word can't and afraid, I'm serious. I'm not being like cocky or anything. The world I grew up in, I was never allowed to use the word can't or afraid or ashamed. Those were words that we were never allowed to use. And every time I tried to say, but I was shut down and I was told, you have a choice. It may not be an easy choice. You may feel that you're at risk because of your choice, but you still are empowered to make the choice. Listen to me. Do you understand why men don't say what they're thinking? Because they're concerned of being judged, of being shut down, of maybe even being imprisoned or killed or wrongfully accused or canceled. Sometimes you just got to say, F it. You got to say it. And you got to be like, you know what? I am not going to let them use their standard of measure, which is more than likely oppressive, to keep me in line. I'm not doing that. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't get on the stage and shake my booty and sing about my pum pum, but I do it when I'm alone in my room, very comfortable. I got a stripper pole in my room. I really do. Yes, I do. You know why? Because I want to remind myself that I can be whoever I choose to be, right? So the fact that she has the confidence and the cunning and the talent and the body to do what she's doing, I'm not going to demean and dismiss and degrade her. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you this, but don't tell anyone I said this. Because she's black, I see no fault in her, even when it's in the smack dead in my face. Because we can't afford to be speaking negatively about each other. We can't. We have too many other things in the world that's coming against us. So, for that reason, is the same reason why I support womanhood blindly. It's because I can't afford to not do so. I'm a woman. I'm a black woman. You'll never hear me badmouth a Jamaican. Never. You know why? Because I don't want to set a standard. Because I know how simple minded human beings are. And I know how the world works. And if I, being an accomplished super lawyer, open my mouth to say something negative about a woman or a black person or a Jamaican, I'm setting a standard that my children, my daughters, my sons, my grandkids may never be able to overcome. So I have to be careful the standards I set. And even if I think it is outrageous, I'm going to keep it to myself and I'm going to find a way to work it into a narrative that can be positive, that can be used to the upliftment of people like her, rather than to tear her down so that people can start saying, we need to curtail all of them because of her. No, I'm not going to be a part of that. And I've seen it happen. Remember, I was a prosecutor. I know how the mindset works.
Okay, but what I'm hearing is what I hear what you say, but in other instances or circles, it sounds like you are virtue signaling. It sounds like you're saying at the end of the day, no ability for
Not
whatever
a,
the woman does.
no, it's not about accountability. See, accountability is a word of art, right? The the people who wanted to set a standard and to retain power and to further their authority to regulate life use these types of words, accountability, uh, this is indecent, this is even impiety, some of them have used, as if everyone has to be forced to live by the same standard of religious fanaticism that these people in power do, right? The word accountability implies illegality, unlawfulness, and inherent wrongdoing. And when you start to think of it from the perspective of accountability, accountable to whom? Megan Thee Stallion has no children. Megan Thee Stallion is an artist. Megan Thee Stallion is not charged with the duty of care that I, as a parent, a grandparent, a sister, a mother, a father, none of these standards can be attributed to her to be accountable for, because you as the parent, you as the grandmother, you as the aunt, the sister, the uncle, have the opportunity to socialize your child, that what they see isn't as nearly as important as what they're taught to believe in.
I disagree. Here's why.
Of
Because
course, because we're taught to let the government guide us.
you know, because we all know as parents, you can only teach and guide your child so much so far in the home. When they leave the home, that's when the real test begins. A woman like Megan Thee Stallion will pretty much would have more influence and possibly authority than me over my own daughter.
That is not true. The only way that Megan Thee Stallion has more influence over your child is if you failed in your duty as a parent and you lost your child's respect. And so she will search anywhere before she goes to you. Because I'm going to tell you something. My dad died, my birth father, because I have four dads. My birth father, Canute Archibald Watson, died when I was 48 years old. The day before my father died, I called him for advice. Every time I'm in angst or in pain, I had a three-way call with both my parents. My mom and dad broke up when I was 3. They've never lived together from my 3rd birthday. But up until the day of my 48th birthday, I was talking to both my parents about my circumstance. I had an issue last week. My mother has a 3rd grade education. I have 7 degrees. One of those degrees is a Juris Doctor. I'm pursuing my PhD in psychology. I had an issue last week and I called my mommy for advice because I respect this woman. This woman has shown me that she's worthy of my regard and that I should emulate her. My mother earned my trust and confidence. So no matter what I came upon in the world, I never departed from what my mother's expectations are. A kid who can be influenced by a TV personality is a kid who had no parental guidance. And I don't care what any parent wants to tell you. Children who have proper parental guidance, love, and support, who are taught to respect their parents by example, don't depart from it. Do you know why most children of pastors become wayward individuals who shy away from the church? It's because they see their parents in their true light. I have a child that I represent. She's an adult now, and her dad was a minister of one of these big churches, mega church. And she would come to my office. She was constantly in trouble. And she would berate this man and talk about how he would spit in her mother's face right before he took the pulpit to testify about the importance of marriage and why marriage is sacrosanct. But she would watch this man hawk and spit in the mother's face because she made him run late. So let me tell you this. I am not saying that what you see is not more important than what you hear, right? And at times more influential. But what I'm telling you is you cannot hold Megan Thee Stallion accountable for your child choosing a path that is inconsistent with a path that you think is decent and honest and fair and just. That is something in the child's socialization. My son joined the Bloods while I was a prosecutor. My other son joined the Crip. You know what I did, Sly? I painted one of them room red and the other one room blue, and I put them on separate floors. And I got a therapist because I needed to know what I did to cause this. And you know what I did? I didn't raise my children. I had nannies. I had live-in help that came and took care of them because I was too busy pursuing my education. You know how I remedied the fact? I supported them and started going to group counseling and therapy with them. And when they talked about what a terrible parent I was, rather than saying, I worked hard. Your dad was deported to Jamaica and I worked straight and went to school and I worked and I earned a JD. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that you were hurting. I didn't realize that me sending you away every summer all over the world to be well traveled was such a horrible thing. And you know what? I have one son, the one that had joined the Crips. He's no longer in the Crips. He's doing very well now. I um call him every Sunday because that's my promise. Because I was such an absent parent, even though I lived in the home and I'm the parent that stayed and I thought I was the hero. I call him, that's my promise to him, every single Sunday. This boy is 30 years old. And if I miss one Sunday, if it's 8 o'clock at night, he calls, so you're not going to call me? And I'll call him. But you know what I know? I saved the world from the monster he could have become by taking accountability, by not blaming Tupac. He loves Tupac. That's his hero. By not blaming Biggie or all of these rappers who were promoting gang violence. My other son, I same thing. He doesn't want to talk to me every Sunday, but I did the same thing. I apologized. I didn't say, how could you join the gang when your mother's a prosecutor? I tried to connect and to find out where I went wrong. And I spoke to him, not in a way just to reply to what he was saying, but to communicate to him that I understood whatever it was he was thinking. And between me and you and the FBI who listens to your program, I think he's full of shit. But I can't tell him that because that would just draw the wedge between us even further. You understand? I'm
Mhm.
not worried about Megan Thee Stallion's influence on my kids. I'm worried about my influence on them. And my
Okay.
daughters have similar concern, right, Sly? But what I do is I help them with their children and I try to be present now more than I was when they were children. Because it's not enough to let a nanny clean their rooms and make their meals. You have to be present. Being in the home doesn't mean you're in the life.
Okay. I respect everything you said.
Thank
But
you.
what am I supposed to think when I see a bunch of grown women in whatever age bracket from 18 to 55 dancing on top of cars, listening to either Megan or Cardi B? What am I supposed to think and say when I see these very men or these women used by different political regimes to push certain narratives that are not uh, pro the betterment of black people? I mean, I can take cities like Detroit, ran by black folks, black women, Atlanta, Baltimore, all of the. So, at what point do you start to begin to hold people that have power, influence, and sway accountable?
But you can't hold the people who have been sexualized and who have been marginalized and who have been excluded from mainstream America accountable before you hold the people who benefit from that reality, right, accountable. So I'm not outraged at Megan Thee Stallion. You know who I'm outraged at? The people in power, the government. I'm outraged at the fact that they don't regulate police officers who murder with impunity. I'm outraged at the fact that they are underfunding schools in low income communities. I'm outraged at the fact that they spent more money to get women to cook um, animal parts for their family using things like liver and kidneys and stuff than they did trying to rehabilitate depressed communities. I'm outraged at the fact that they allow redlining to take place without accountability. I'm outraged at the fact that a black person with a 720 credit score doesn't get the same interest rate as a white person with a 760 or 740 or 730, whatever, even if they're equally um, matched. They don't get the same treatment, and no one regulates that. I'm outraged at the fact that Donald Trump could become president, despite the fact that he said, "Proud Boys stand by," and caused an insurrection that this country may never recover from, and no one is calling him to task or trying to make him accountable. I am outraged at the fact that everyone tells you the statistics that make black men dangerous, but no one tells you that among every single group in this world, the black man is the most resilient because despite all the reasons they have to fail, majority of them succeed and they succeed rather well. I'm outraged at a family court system that will force a black man to pay child support but will never force his woman to make him have sufficient visitation with his child commensurate with the support that he has to pay. I'm outraged at many things, but one thing I'm not outraged at is anything that promotes, uplifts, and empowers people who should have failed, but when they tried to bury them, they rose as seeds and grew and became great oaks. I'm never going to be outraged by them. I'm saluting them because with all the opportunities that they had to fail, they managed to excel. Cardi B is one of those people. That girl had no guidance. But look how far she's managed to come. Megan Thee Stallion is an accomplished businesswoman. But nobody talks about that. That
Her
girl is
bus-
brilliant.
her
She's an
business is
accomplished businesswoman.
her,
No one ever talks about that.
her business acumen is flawed. Her business practices are flawed. Her
So what
business.
would you suggest that she do? Fall in line, join welfare, and complain about her black baby daddy who ain't
No,
doing
no,
right
no.
by her?
I got an answer for you. It's a two-part answer. First,
Or
I
should
want
she
to.
marry a white man and then get to the Supreme Court and have
No,
everybody applaud her because she can't do much as his wife?
I got you. It's a two-part answer. First part I want to address. You mentioned child support. Okay, child support would not exist if you didn't have certain demographics of people feeding into it. That's the first thing. Second part, as far as Megan Thee Stallion, she is part of the reason why the business of managing and dealing with women in the business is the way it is because they're basically at the end of the day, she didn't honor her original contract with the black man that basically discovered her. And then in turn, certain people got into her ear. She turned her back on them, basically broke illegally broke the contract and went to another a competitor per se. This is why she's embroiled in this bad business lawsuit to begin with. So her business should not be celebrated. It's that the way she does her business is why women are so looked down upon in the business, why men don't want to deal with it because of situations like
That's
that.
not true. Men are misogynistic by nature. They're inherently sexist and they sexualize women. And the only way that men, I've been offered penis more than I care to admit. I remember there was a guy, he was a radio personality, and I love this man. He was married and I celebrated him. And somebody for my 35th birthday thought it was a good idea to introduce me to him. And I was so excited to meet him. And I told the man that I admired him. Someday I wanted to do radio. And one day he rang my bell, and it never occurred to me that I should let him in my office because I was alone. And he came into my office, and he didn't know that I was a natural born killer. And you know what he did? He grabbed my ass. I slapped the shit out of him and put him out my office and never spoke to him again. And I was just so disgusted and tired because from at that point, I started to call myself the gropee because I had been groped and fondled and offered penis more times than I care to admit in the course of me trying to pursue business. So I find it ironic that the same people who have been sexualizing women for historically now complain because women are too over sexualized. Women are selling sex, but you've been selling us as sexual object for even if you're selling a goddamn car, you put a naked woman next to it. No matter what you're selling, potato chips, they have women in bathing suits selling potato chips. Why do you need a naked girl to sell a potato chip? So how now, because she's doing exactly what men have capitalized on for centuries, she's a bad businesswoman? No, absolutely not.
But
She's an
Audrey,
icon
but
and one who should be emulated. Go, Megan.
But Audrey, I
Yay
wouldn't
to the V.
I wouldn't have anybody to sexualize if they didn't show up. And what I'm saying is, um, we can move past the men sexualize the women part. That's a dead argument now because the women choose to sexualize themselves.
Sure,
Is that is that
sure,
is that not the case? That's not fair.
sure.
So you disagree with what I just said?
Let me tell you something. When you have one of the most unattractive men in the music industry talking about what's this girl's name? Cindy. She's heavy and she raps. Lizzo. Calling Lizzo the
The shit
comparing
emoji.
Lizzo to the poop
She's a
emoji.
okay.
You tell me that women are sexualizing themselves? That guy is like the most unattractive man in this industry. He has no place to refer to anyone negatively in reference to their appearance. But he had the audacity to say this in a not just in a private setting, in a public setting, because he thinks it's okay. He thinks other people believe like he does. Why do you think you have 138 women who die every year from getting that BBL mommy makeover? It's not because women want to look like that. It's because women have been socialized to think if they don't look like the BBL and the mommy makeover, men won't pay attention. And the men who control the contracts, the men who decide who gets the part, the men whose job it is to mete out favors, always want a certain type of woman. So here it is. You're telling me that the woman is the one who's sexualizing. Let me tell you something. I I over my time have gained a substantial amount of weight. I've downplayed my beauty. I've tried my best to just to not be the distraction that causes people to not be able to work with me, because one of the things that happened to me when I first became an attorney consistently is my clients always wanted to have a relationship with me. I've had to turn men down. One guy, I'm sitting in front of him talking to him about his case, his rape case, mind you, and he falls on his knees and buries his face in my crotch. Please, Miss Thomas, whatever you can do to help me, please. At which point I had to tell him, there's no one that you should ever fall on your knees from. It's beneath you. Get up, you're a man. HIM means His Imperial Majesty. Remember that. But I was terrified because I couldn't understand why he thought that was appropriate. What did I do? I was wearing a three-piece suit. My hair was in a French roll. I had spectacles on. I was the epitome of law. If I was a male lawyer, would he have done that? I don't think so. So don't tell me women sexualize themselves. You, no matter what you're wearing or what you look like, if you're a female, a man will find some way to offer you penis.
Oh, no, no, no. This, of course, yes. You can go out in rollers, pink rollers, bonnet, jammy pants. A woman will always get more attraction on her worst day than a man could on his best day. That's just the nature of the beast of biology.
Hold
That's one thing. Well,
one second. Explain. No, 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 no. I would never say that because some men sexualize women, all men are predators. I love men. I think they're yummy. Someone
so
posted that.
yeah, nah, chat be wilding, but they're good people. But I don't agree. I don't agree. Women on the worst day, dick pics, dick vids, they all day, every day, 10, 15 dicks in your face. I get it. But you mentioned the looks because of the looks of comedian Ari Spears. Men are not judged by looks. Okay. So that's
Right.
how,
And that's the difference.
but that once again, that's just the nature of things, how that goes. We're not That's never going to change ever. A man's not based on his success by how he looks. It's based by his accomplishments, what the money's in his bank account, the cars he drives, things of that nature. Women are mainly judged by the looks. That's the first thing that gets you through the door are your looks. Second point is who told Lizzo to go to the Lakers game with her ass cheeks hanging out in a venue with children? It's a family event. Who sexualized Lizzo to the point where she decided it's a good idea to go to a Lakers game with her ass cheeks hanging out? That's my second point. Third point is oh shit, the
Mhm.
BBLs. It's pretty much common knowledge now. The women are not doing this for men. Most men are like, you don't have to get this. I can put countless stories of men begging their women and wives not to get the BBLs, and they end up dying 3 to 4 days later from complications. That's not men. Men have, you cannot, you got to stop blaming men for sexualized women. Women have taken that
No, no, no,
Todd,
no, no. Sly,
it's on
Sly.
them. It's on
If I
them.
have, ladies and gentlemen, if I, Audrey A. Thomas, attorney at law, have miscommunicated to you that I blame men, then I want to let you know without any reservations. I blame no one. I think everyone should be allowed to be who they are within the confines of a civil society. So if Lizzo wants to wear her ass cheeks out, why can't she?
Not
Guys
in
walk
front
around,
of,
guys
not in
walk around
venues
without
with
their shirt.
children, families and
Guys walk
children.
around without their shirts. And if
Nobody's going to the
Lizzo,
Lakers game. Hold up, hold up. And when have you ever seen a man of any race go to a Lakers game shirtless?
I've seen it many times, many
To,
times,
to the forum, to the Lakers game,
many times.
to
They,
the
they they
forum.
go there. They have paint with no top. I've seen so many things that wasn't considered outrageous, and I think this was about her weight. I don't think it was about her ass. Most men don't want to see a fat woman. So they find fat women inherently unattractive, and so they think it's okay to dismiss and demean. And I'm loving Lizzo because Lizzo has really risen above the fray. She's really managed to embrace who she is and to exist in her authentic self. Lizzo has really accepted that this is not her body, this is her social habit, and she's not going to let anyone have her hide in shame because she's heavy. She's going to live her best life, and she's doing it, and she's doing it rather well.
She's doing it terribly. Are you kidding me? Wait a minute.
She's
This
doing
same
it
woman,
rather well.
this woman goes on IG Live to while she uses the bathroom. On who does that?
She does.
You don't think that's uncouth, especially
Okay.
for a woman?
Okay. So yeah,
Well,
you
wait,
are
wait, no, seriously,
misogynist.
no, just
Did
hear
you
me
just
out.
say especially for a woman? So if a man
Who?
did it, it would
I
be
don't
okay.
know, no, but for somebody in her prominence of a stature in society, whatever the case, amongst whatever, you think that's a bit
Okay,
crass, a little
so
bit
it's her
lowbrow?
IG live. If she wants to share her bathroom experience, you know what you have the privilege of doing? Changing the channel.
And then guess what? We also have the right to judge.
No, you don't. No, you
Yes, everybody judge. We all
no,
judge.
you
It's
don't.
called discernment. You don't judge anybody.
I don't. I observe without opinion. If I see something on the TV, like when I the other day, my daughter turned on a show and every character in the show was white, and I turned my TV off. And she says, "Why did you do that?" I said, "Get out my room." She says, "Why?" I said, "Because I don't want to watch that. I don't want my mind starting to think that it's okay to pretend we live in a world where all the characters that matter are white. I don't hate white people. Some of my closest friends are white, but I don't want to be exposed to that because I don't want my brain to be socialized to accept that reality. Because then when I see a room full of black people, I'm going to be uncomfortable. No, get out my room. She can watch whatever she wants. She just can't watch it in my room. I'm not judging her. I'm observing without an opinion as to whether this is good or bad. I'm just saying that I'm educated enough to know how subtle that representation can be and how damning it can potentially become. I
Okay,
don't
let
want
me
to
ask you.
wake up one day and be like this girl. What's her name? She was in Mission Impossible. Uh, what is this girl's name? No, not Mission Impossible. She was in a show with um with that white guy that married Bruce Willis's wife, and they pretended to be a couple.
Ashton Kutcher and
Right? She
Demi
was in a
Moore.
show. What's her name?
Demi Moore. She was in a movie called
No,
Sober.
not Demi Moore. The
Oh,
girl, the black girl that played his black girlfriend, and she brought him home to her dad, and
oh,
the
I
dad
remember
was
it with Bernie
remember,
Mac, and I remember. Yes, yes, yes.
right?
Okay, go
What's her
ahead. Yeah,
name?
I forget her name,
I
but
don't
I
want to
remember.
wake up one day and start to think that white men are my only options. That girl actually said that, and I'm not judging her. I just don't. I feel like the reason why that happened to her is because all of her influences were white. She was watching all these shows that made white men the hero and black men the villain, and eventually, over time, she developed the perspective that this was a reality. I don't want that because the thing that I don't think people understand, Sly, is these subtle representations. That's why I'm talking about my perspective on visual influences. They're subtle, but they can be damning. They really can. You know that I have a rule that none of my children will ever, none of them were ever allowed to walk around with a white doll. If someone gave my child a doll for Christmas, I gave it to charity if it was a white doll. If I see my grandkids with white dolls, I give it away. I don't hate white people, but I'm not going to have my child thinking that the image of beauty is reflected outside of them. I want when my children and grandchildren look at beauty, they see themselves and they respect that. You understand? I don't want to look at another black woman and say she looks like shit. That's the problem. It's not the fact that he said it. It's the fact that he was led to believe it's okay to say it because of his socialization. This is what happens. Why do you think people are arguing over whether a fictitious character, this is the Little Mermaid is a fiction of penmanship, right? And people are arguing about the Little Mermaid's race. It's because consistently throughout time, all of the visual aids that they've been given represents even the characters in cartoons as being white. And now someone had the temerity to come out and say, hey, here's the thing. Yes, Angela Burris, I'm a racist, but I don't practice racism in public or at work. I treat everyone equally, but I only put black men in my bed. That's why all my kids are black. There's nothing wrong with being a racist. It's what you do with it outside of your personal space.
Okay, I'll take that. But if you've been on social media long enough, then you would kind of have an inkling of an idea of how um, lauded and praised the white man has become, even more so with black women over the last 5 to 10 years.
I don't see
Second,
that. You know why, Sly? Because I don't watch it. If I
okay,
see it, I change the channel because
okay,
I'm not going to let my mind be influenced by that limited perspective. The
th-
black man for me is the ultimate. There's
that's
nothing
the
sexier, cuter, sweeter, more accomplished, smarter, desirable than a black man. That's not something that happened overnight. That's how I was raised. I
I'm with.
literally was taught that HIM means His Imperial Majesty, and that reference was related to black men.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But once again, even in our own little bubbles, there's a bigger world that exists outside of our bubbles. Yeah, we can believe, we can, internalize whatever the case may be, but it does not negate the fact that you have a huge narrative being formed when it comes to the pedestalization of Europeanness. And my second point to that is it's kind of hard to have children and they see their peers, they don't have the hair that's on their head that's theirs. Their looks are becoming more European focused. It's kind of hard to keep that in house and keep your children away from those type of influences. Once again, it's even in the music, it's the TV and film, it's pretty much everywhere, which goes back to my original point of the media basically having a bigger influence on your children than the parents.
I don't think it's the media having a greater influence. I think the parents are choosing to be less influential because my kids and my grandkids are watching the same things that other people's children are watching, but it's not the same. I'll give you a perfect example. Someone went on a rant and said, Mary J. Blige is trying to be white because she only wears blonde hair and she keeps her hair straight. At which point I said to my children, that's a person that should think further than the corner of their block because in Jamaica, redheads, blondes, they're dark skinned. There are Jamaicans in Saint Elizabeth and Saint Catherine and Saint Mary and Saint Anne's that are natural blondes, but they're darker than me. They have very light eyes. They have red hair, and you know it's theirs because even the hair on their arms is red, right? But if you've never seen this, you would assume that blonde hair is indicative of whiteness, that having a carrot top is indicative of whiteness, or it's Eurocentric, but it's not. We are a very dynamic and diverse and just eclectic people. We are our talents and attributes supersedes and surpasses everything that we can ever imagine. But what happens is the imagery that we're exposed to downplays that. You will never hear anyone talking about that out of many one people means that the Jamaican population is so diverse. You can find every race of people in black, and by every race I mean you're seeing kids with slanted eyes but they're dark skinned. You're seeing kids with really straight noses but they're dark skinned. You're seeing kids with blonde hair and light eyes but they're dark skinned. This one little girl that was my neighbor when I lived in South Ozone Park, little girl had a carrot top. I mean, she had this reddest hair you'd ever seen, right? And everyone's like, oh, why did the parents dye her hair? And I was like, no, That's her hair. She's Jamaican. Look at her arm. Even the hair on her arm is red. That's her natural hair color. No one believed, because if you've never seen it, you're not inclined to believe it. So all I'm saying is, as the parent, you have to have these conversations with your children so that when they leave the home, even if the influences are out there, they still hear you in the back of their head.
Right. It turns into you as a parent, only thing you can really hope for is that they remember what you told them in the house when they're outside by themselves or in a group where it would require them to be the stand-up person and say, no, I'm not going to do this. So that's I'm with you on that. We're in agreement. But if the government tells parents, hey, if your kid comes home or he comes to school, he says he wants to change his gender, there's nothing the parent can do about it.
Of
Then
course you
who has
can.
the
You
bigger?
can sue. You can sue. You can sue. Loving is the perfect case of it. The government said it was illegal for blacks and white to marry. They sued and they won. And today, the new law says blacks and white can too marry. Just like Padilla, they were saying that, if you had a conviction, you had to get out of this country, you were done. Padilla said, I'm not going nowhere and I'm going to sue. And then the laws were changed. What I'm saying to you is, you cannot just keep saying, that's the way the world is. I'm not going to do anything. You have to be willing to stand up and stand out. You have to improve your argument as you lower your voice. Because what I'm learning to do, Sly, is I'm no longer using my outside voice, but I say some inside stuff that'll make your head spin. Right? I use my inside voice with my exceptional law ability, and I change some stuff. I am who people come to, Sly, when they have nowhere else to go. You know why? Because I'm willing to try. I've had so many clients that I can line up one day for you, and you can ask them what happened to you. One guy came to me and he said, Audrey, 6 lawyers told me that any lawyer that takes my money is a thief because there's nothing that can be done. How are you asking me for $15,000? I said, well, I'm not a thief. I mean, I might put my hand in your pocket, right? Because I'm taking 15 grand, but all I'm telling you is I'm going to try. So he came. And the first day we went to court, immigration took him. His girlfriend gave me the business. She saved my number in her phone as, I'm not going to say his name, but let's say his name was Sly. Sly's bitch lawyer. That's my number in her phone. And how do I know? I couldn't find my phone, and I took her phone to call my phone, and it said Sly's bitch lawyer. His name is not Sly, guys. I'm just using that to cover the client's identity. Immigration took him. I fought immigration with a passion. That guy was so mad at me, he punched the plexiglass so hard trying to hit me. He busted his hand. And I told him some expletive deleted. I'm supposed to, well, nah, stop. And in those days, you couldn't fire the lawyer. The lawyer had to quit, right? It was immigration. Now you sign a paper, the lawyer's out of here. It's supposed to, well, me nah quit. Me tell you, some me nah stop, and me I gotta keep trying. Now chat to me. You can bust up anything where you can, but if you come from behind a fence, then me done you. Cause you're going like say you're idiot. Myself chill. And I spoke to him in my Jamaican parlance, and he loved it, right? And he was like, yeah, but me tired, I'm wrong. I said, easy. I'ma fight them. I sued, I fought. That boy got out of jail. And you know what was crazy? The wife died. They had 6 kids. So after he got out and he got his citizenship, his wife died. So those 6 kids didn't end up without their father. And that
Wait, wait,
was
wait.
only,
Hold on, stop it right there. So he was an illegal alien. He's
yeah.
undocumented. Fuck him.
No,
Why do I care?
no, no, no. But he won his case, and it wasn't that
No,
he
no,
was
no, 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 no,
illegal.
no, 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 no.
No, you
Hear me
have to,
out.
because you can't
No,
say
no,
you're an
no, no,
Afrocentric, Sly, and don't stand up for every black person that's
no.
that's that's at risk.
Listen.
Let me tell you this: he had a green card, but back in the 80s, he had caught some marijuana charges. So there
Okay.
was a blanket, get him out of here. That's that,
Okay.
and they were putting him out. But I
Okay.
fought for him, and during the time that I was fighting, that's when Padilla's lawyers, because I didn't handle Padilla, they fought for
You
him
don't care.
and won. And
No.
then at the end of the day, I win this guy's case. He got to stay here. And then their mom died. She had a heart attack and died.
Yeah.
And you know what? These kids had their father. He's now an American citizen. He owns his own business. He's doing very well. And he's very productive. And so for me, the 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 the, the test of a true person's commitment to community is how far they're willing to go to stand up when it matters. You can't get on your goddamn soapbox and talk about equality, equality, equality when you're doing nothing to further it. You can't. You just cannot. And I'm gonna tell you this, Sly. I've been in when I was a prosecutor. I was in court, and legal aid attorneys, white, black, whatever their race, they would get up and they would stand on their little proverbial soapboxes and talk about racism and the system isn't just and blah 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 blah. And one of the coldest nights in the year, in the history of cold, I will never forget. The legal aid lawyer made a big stink. Oh, this is preposterous. You know, this prosecutor, she's doing this and she's asking for these things and fighting for this prostitute, right? The girl had on literally fishnet stockings, G strings, and a little like puffy fur coat. But it was the coldest night of the year. And I finished, it was the last case I finished, and the judge released her. I was arguing for remand for her to be sent for drug treatment because it was clearly she was on drugs, right? When I came out of the back of the courthouse, I heard a whimpering. And when I looked, that girl was in the corner, and the five legal aid lawyers were walking across the street towards the parking lot. She was shivering. None of them gave that girl car fare. The prosecutor that they were saying was a part of the problem in the system and all of these things, was the one who gave that girl car fare. And then I walk across the street, I say, hey, you see Una? And I cussed them out, right? I won't tell you what I said, but I gave them the business because for me, you don't get to raise hell about how unjust and unfair the system is when you're not willing to walk the walk and talk the talk. You're only advocating in the courtroom, but when it matters most, because what could have happened is that girl could have gone down in the subway and jumped the turnstile and gotten rearrested. Why didn't you secure transportation for her? Legal aid has the money that they can give them metro cards and things like that. Or better yet, you're talking all that smack to me saying that I'm a part of the problem. Why didn't you give her train fare? I
Okay,
gave the girl money.
okay. Just like you told me, why she could have sued. Why didn't she sue?
I don't know if she sued. She probably did.
You know
But
she
the
didn't sue.
reality of it is, I did something to help her. And I told you the same thing about Janet. Janet was a white prosecutor. When I represented Talani Marshall in the McDonald's fighting thing, the, everyone was up in arms, but it was the white prosecutor woman who advocated for that little girl that made it possible for her to get as far as she's gone in life now. I'm never going to just be blind about anything. What I'm concerned with is injustice. I am primarily concerned with the young black male because I believe they're an endangered species. And I believe that every single person, including black people, is well poised to judge them and to convict them. And it hurts me when I see a young black man on a jury, see the police lying and doing stuff on the stand and still go in that back room and vote guilty. How could you? Send a message to the police. Every time you see a instance of police brutality in whatever form, that should be enough for you to say not guilty, because that's how you force change. It's the silent voice, the inside voice, the one who goes inside and who stands for something more than just hearing their own voice. And I see that every day. I see it in politics. I remember there was one politician who came and spoke at a church that I visited. I don't have a church in particular. I go to mosque. I go everywhere, right? Because I'm not committed to any one religion or group. And this woman spoke so well, and she seemed to be so community minded. But the minute she got elected, that woman sanctioned some policies that made me want to get her butt and beat out her what's it called. But you can't, because as a lawyer, you'd get disbarred for beating up the public figures.
Mhm.
And I can't really speak out against her. By the way, do you know about Aikisha Al Shabazz? She does that
No.
Ike Speak.
Oh, her. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
She
I
just
follow her.
quit.
Yeah, I heard she
She
had
cut
a
up her law license and sent
yeah.
it back to them, right? With a very nice letter. And I think it's because after a while
That
you get
okay. You know what? Let me.
disillusioned about it,
I
right?
think.
Because
What?
you're trying to help, but you have so many people against you, and many of the people against you are in your daggone community.
Okay, I'm with you, but I think part of that was theatrics. It's like it's so over the top. I'm like, you need to
It's
do all that.
not. And you have to understand, Sly, that if you're not going to be a part of the solution, then you're going to become a part of the problem. You can't dismiss that as theatrics. A law license is one of the hardest things to come by. And I know her personally. right? This
Well,
woman, I've seen,
tell her.
I was doing a murder case once, and
Okay.
she came to my office. She was never paid a dollar, but she stayed there till 3, 4 in the morning to help me with that case. We got her not guilty. She was never mentioned. Nobody ever knew the work that she did on that. That's the kind of person that she is. She's community. All that fire that you see, that's really her. She really does take the shit that seriously.
I'm
She's a
with you.
hero.
She. I like her. I like her. But for once again, my perspective likes to get over the top. I'm like, come on, sis. What are we doing?
No, because what happens, Sly, and I'm telling you this. What happens? Okay, so for example, when I won my case, the judge filed a grievance against me. That wasn't enough. The judge cut my voucher in half because it was an 18B case.
Mhm.
If that if that's happening to you and it's your only source of income, it breaks you down. Every time this woman tries to advocate for her clients, the judges grieve her. And what they do, Sly, that you don't know about is these judges band together. What they did to me, and I can tell you this personally, I was on trial in the Bronx. Okay. You tell me this is a coincidence. I got a not guilty verdict, let's say at 1 o'clock. And I got a phone call from a judge who I sent an affirmation saying, I can't come to court. I'm on trial in the Bronx. I got a phone call at 1:30 saying, hey, come to court at 2:15. This is in Brooklyn. And when I went to court at 2:15, they made me start another trial. Now you don't practice law. You don't understand that that devastates your life because while you're on trial, you're not earning any money. And your current clients are mad because they can't reach you. You're not coming to their court, so you're losing business, and your name is being mud is being thrown on your name in the community. These people know this because they practice law. So when they force a lawyer to stand up to that schedule, and it's not a white or black thing, because I have white friends that they do the same thing too. It's anyone who advocates. Take Judge Gary, for example. Judge Gary is one of the most decent, fair, and just judges in the state of New York. He was in the gun part in Brooklyn. He would throw these cases out with the quickness. And I remember the first time I ever tried a Supreme Court case, and when I became a real lawyer, was because Judge Gary, I had gone to court. The police had chased my client, and my client threw the gun in the chute. And I was afraid to try the case because, come on, they saw him throw the gun in the chute, right? So I was scared. I was like 34 years old. I was afraid. I really was. And I'm saying the word afraid now because it's a great story in the end. And the DA was offering 7 to 13 because my client was like a persistent, felony offender. And I spoke to my client and he was like, fuck it, I'll take it. Excuse me for cursing, guys. I'm sorry. I'll take it. And I went up and I said, Judge Gary, my client wants to take the plea. And he says, no, step out. When can you try this case? The prosecutor said, well, we're ready. And I come up and I said, well, Judge, I am not ready. He said, you're not ready? I said, no. And he says, okay, sweetie, step back. So now I step back and I'm like, and he goes, uh, counselor, this case is adjourned to tomorrow. So I'm like, but if I'm not ready today, I can't be ready tomorrow, right? And I go, but Judge, he said, yes. And I'm going to put this case on every fucking day until you grow a spine and try this. And I was shocked because he cursed. He really cursed. He said that exact word. So I left. I had no help at the time. I'm a solo practitioner. I really just started my practice. I was a prosecutor before, so I'm still prosecutor minded somewhat. And my 17-year-old son said, Mommy, I'll help you. And that boy, he was in John Jay College at the time because he started college early. He took a GED because my kids they didn't do well in school. They were always fighting because of, me being the absent parent. But he passed it because they were smart. So he started John Jay at 17. He said, I'll help you. And he helped me. He did the research and he found a case that said the police didn't have the right to chase that man, that there was no probable cause. So I piggybacked on that case. And my 17-year-old son and I tried that case together and we won. Judge Goldberg dismissed the case after we presented the motion for dismissal and so forth. But because it wasn't a verdict, and it was a judge dismissal, the district attorney's office appealed. I had never done an appeal before in my life, but the person that was on the other side was a black woman. And I called her up and I said, "Hey, they want me to appeal this case, but I've never." She said, "I'll send you a sample." And she sent me a sample. Now I'm smart and I can, my reading comprehension is off the chain good. So my son and I did the appeal together and we won. They went to the Court of Appeals and appealed and we won. My now son, he's now 19 at the time. And that's how I became an appellate attorney. That's what opened the door for me. One, because I admitted I didn't know what I was doing, but two, because someone else said, "I'm not going to let you fall in line and take an unjust plea." You know what they did to Judge Gary? They disgraced him and did all kinds of things until they got him off of the bench, demoted him to criminal court. And I have no idea where he is right now, but I never forget that man in my prayers, because that's what they do. When they have judges that are fair and just, they damn them and they dismiss them and they demean them and they find porn on their computers, because who doesn't watch porn? They do all kinds of things. But when they have judges that screw people over and act like they're an advocate for the prosecutor, they end up on the appellate division. They end up with a TV show. You understand? So for me, I'm telling you, it's not so much about race. It's about being that person who observes without opinion and who can look beyond the things I think people have done, because protecting them from what people are doing to them unjustly is much more important than worrying about what they've done.
Okay, I hear you. That's awesome. That's awesome. But let me go back to Ike real quick. Is there not enough disgruntled attorneys that they can't get together? Who knows the law better than you guys, besides the judge, right? So
Right.
I'm outside looking in. I'm like, well, why can't you use the law against them, sue them, whatever, get a class action? A bunch of y'all former disgruntled attorneys get together and just sue the shit out of everybody. Even it may be frivolous, even it may never go anywhere, but it seems to me disgruntled attorneys like to tell people, the regular folk, what to do when it comes to that situation, but they don't practice what they preach.
Right.
Why do I want to hear an attorney complain and bitch about her job, about what she done did for the last 20, 30 years, and now all of a sudden, because it ain't, it's against you now, then it done turned against you. Now you want to complain and boo-hoo, like, nah, won't you do what you've been telling other people to do for the last 20 years?
Well, here's the thing. You have to think about this, and I'm not speaking for Ike, right? But I'm going to tell you this, Sly. I keep saying the strength of a woman, but in this case, I'm going to change it. The strength of a human lies in their ability to adapt, right? A human's ability to adapt depends on the resources they have to them. Ike may not have the resources that I have that enables me to continue to carry on, despite the fact that I've been attacked and people have tried so hard to take away this license that I worked for. I got expelled from law school the first semester. I got kicked out, completely kicked out the second. And I fought my way, appealed, and did everything in my power until I graduated 287 in a class of 288, right? But I graduated because 2.0 equals JD. The reason why I was able to do that, Sly, is because I had a lot of help. My teachers stood with me. They wrote letters. They said, this girl is going to be a great lawyer. She just needs help. Um, Today, when I got arrested and was treated so unfairly and was my face was plastered all over the news, and many people were saying, "How come you didn't kill yourself?" It's because I had judges that stood up for me, that wrote letters. I had lawyers that came. One girl, I loved her. She made T-shirts and buttons, free Audrey Thomas, right? And I had so many people in the community because I'm tapped into several different communities. You have to think about it, right? I grew up with some hardcore hustlers, area leaders where we flip your wig in a second if you slip out the line. I grew up with some extreme Christians who would pray for you and ask God to forgive you for you know not what you're doing. I've been in every community, right? So I have a foundation that is so strong, my house is never shaky. What if she doesn't have that? What if she's dealing with some personal issues that makes it insurmountable, this attack that they're making on her? My friend, James Koenig, walked into his office 2 months ago and put a gun in his mouth and squeezed the trigger. He's a lawyer. Everyone was shocked. White guy. You see him, you would think that his life is perfect. He never has a hair out of place. His suit is perfect. I used to tease him with my pen, take the top off, and talk to him real close. And he'd say, "Come on, back up," because he was afraid of getting a pen mark. That guy put a gun in his mouth in his law office and killed himself. Who knows why? What I don't ever want to do is say, well, why didn't you do this? Because we don't know that they had that resource available to them. Sly, I am so resourced. How did I meet you? I was mad because I was supposed to do the radio show with Judge Gary and he with brother Gary, and he never called me, and he had promised, and my friend Cindy heard me whining, and she was like, "Well, why don't you call Sly? You love doing this. Sly will let you do it on his show. He loves strong, political, powerful women." And here I am. I didn't know you from a hole in the wall, but Cindy knows you. Do you understand, Sly? That has been my reality. That's the reason why I don't put a gun in my mouth and squeeze the trigger. That's why I haven't cut up my law license and send it to them. Because that's what they want you to do. That's why they target you. You understand? They target you in hopes that they'll break you down so much that eventually you will fail, you will quit, you will turn back, you'll give up, and more importantly, you'll start to blame each other. And bang, 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 a shot rings out, and another black person is on the corner dead because somebody is projecting the stress of the universe onto someone who looks like them. Because that's the only first person you feel strong enough to stand up to. I don't want to be that person. And I don't want to judge someone because they're that person. That's why I wrote these books, right? Because rather than shoot people, I express my angst and my desires, and I stay in my empowered head. Least I become complacent enough to think that there's some power outside of me that's greater than me. There's none. There's none. And I have to say that to keep myself strong enough to not put a gun in my mouth and squeeze the trigger.
Okay. Yeah, I want to end this as a part one, and I want to come back and do a part two because, yeah, I want to give it its proper enough time to really go over this topic because it can go so many different ways, and I don't want to shortchange you. So, um, let's do this. Let's end this here, and
Yes.
then
You know,
I,
we never talked about the Little Mermaid.
yeah, I know that's why I really want to get into your views on the Little Mermaid and the Woman King
Yes.
and give it its proper due. So, yeah, we'll work it out behind the scenes on to finish so part two to this. Um,
Well, here's the thing. I want
yeah,
you to know that I love what you're doing. I want you to know that I appreciate your approach. I appreciate the fact that you challenge me so very well. But you don't make me feel demeaned. That is important, right? Because at the end of the day, you are a man and I am a woman, and I'm kind of sensitive.
that's just got jokes. No, I appreciate that. No, thank you for that. But no, yeah, I'm not the type to attack or for the views and make it all
Right.
salacious and stuff. I see too much of that. That's not how it should be. But yeah. So yeah. Any last words for the people? Where can they find you? All that good stuff.
It's not so much about finding me, it's about finding yourself. When you see someone who looks like you, remember, you may get what you want by being combative or judgmental or out of control, but you're going to make it hard for those who have to follow you. So when you're acting, remember you're acting on my behalf.
Duly noted. All right, Audrey A. Thomas Esquire. So wait, so what is Aki going to be a criminal defense attorney now? Or is she going to go on the other side and just be?
Oh, she quit being she is a defense attorney.
Oh,
She used to
so
be a prosecutor. She
right,
is
right.
now a defense attorney. She's quit law.
So she's
She
done.
surrendered her law
Oh,
license.
oh
She's
no,
done with law.
I don't think she
She
should have
can't
done that.
defend anyone ever again.
I don't think that
They
she.
pushed her over the edge.
I don't think she should have done that.
Yeah, but
I think she should
I
have set
respect
forth.
it and I love her, and I'm praying that her next level is greater than her last.
Well, I know she expressed desires to run for DA at one point, right?
She should. I would put a lot of money into her campaign.
Yeah,
I would love to see her become the next Queens County DA.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think she should have done that. That's just my opinion, though.
Oh, who said that? You're inspiring, Audrey. Keep that up. I think I love them.
Oh, no,
Who was that, Sly? I can't see the name.
Pamela. I forget what.
Pamela, I think I love you. But I'm a tech girl, but I love you.
Hey, hey, hey. So yeah. Also, I want to thank Cindy for the $50 super chat. They need thanks, dear. They need to do all that, but YouTube that's what YouTube does. Is give me. No, it's all good though. So yeah, let me end this, and then I'll talk to you on the phone, and then we'll work out part two to this.
Okay, Sly. Love and appreciate you.
Anytime. This is your second, third, fourth, fifth home, something like that. So
I like my home.
all right, and I'll talk to you
Okay.
later.
Bye bye. How do I
All
end
right.
it?